It's that time. It's Friday, November 3rd, 2017. It's that time of the hour for your favorite NFL and college football program. Welcome to Week 9 of the Blitz Zone. Before I begin tonight's show, I have a prepared statement that I would like to read for you all. Because I am your host, Eric Rosen. I'm coming to you live from the studio CTV in Staten Island, New York. I was the previous co-host of a weekly sports show called In the Bleachers. And I do emphasize the words co-host, as it was on Monday of this week when I was referred to as merely a substitute by the man who preceded me and ironically now has replaced me as the show's new co-host. I'd just like to set the record straight before getting on with my show. Although Jamie Hicks and I have parted ways due to creative differences, I consider my 5 years of In the Bleachers some of the best years of my life. And despite feeling belittled by the inference that I was the cause of the show going downhill, the fact of the matter is that I truly believe I brought a sense of professionalism and a diversity of viewpoint that I thought the show didn't have. Something that Jamie recognized when he asked me to become his co-host in 2012. All I can say is that I wish both Jamie and his sidekick the best as they endeavor to take the show back to its glory days with their snappy banter, feigned personal insults, newspaper notes, and what can only be described as their unique brand of sports or coverage. Good luck, gentlemen. Back together at last. And now, having said my piece, are you ready for some football? Let's get to it. All right, let's get into the news of this past week in the NFL, including the saga that is Ezekiel Elliott, the running back for the Dallas Cowboys in his sophomore year. Unfortunately, didn't get off to a good start before the season began. As we know, in August, he was handed a 6-game suspension by the NFL for violating the personal conduct policy. Of course, like any player, he has the right to appeal any decision under the collective bargaining agreement. They went to a mediator. The mediator ruled in favor of the NFL 6-game suspension. Then Ezekiel's attorneys, along with the NFL Players Association, decided to take this to the court, decided to get an injunction filed until they had a court date. They were able to get that injunction. He was able to play in the beginning of the year. The NFL was able to get one of the district courts in New Orleans to rule in their favor. Then this past October, Ezekiel and the NFLPA got another injunction against the NFL and recently just had a court case this past Tuesday in the Southern District Court of New York, and that decision went back in favor of the NFL, upholding the original 6-game suspension. The suspension is due in part to a domestic violence abuse allegation against him from a former girlfriend named Tiffany Thompson that took place in Columbus, Ohio. The police in Ohio did not charge him with any crimes. They felt as though the witness testimony and all the was pretty much didn't corroborate at all with what happened. So, therefore, they dropped the case against Ezekiel, but the NFL listened to the court of public opinion and therefore decided even if there was an illegal situation in Ohio, even if he wasn't formally charged, still he was judged by the NFL, and they decided to hand him that 6-game suspension. Well, anyway, this past today, the NFL Ezekiel and his lawyers were able to get another injunction against the NFL before the next step, the Court of Appeals. The appellate courts usually have not gone well for the NFL players in question, including Tom Brady, who couldn't get the appeals court to rule in his favor for a 4-game suspension when it came to deflating a football. If that was the case, I do not think in any way that they're going to help Ezekiel with this situation. So, therefore, I think Ezekiel is going to end up serving that 6-game suspension. How this hurts the Dallas Cowboys remains to be seen. But let's see what happens when they have their next court case. Best of luck to Ezekiel. Best of luck to the NFL. Whatever the decision is, we'll just have to all see where the chips fall where they may. Now, the next story right here, an unfortunate leg injury took place in the Superdome when the Bears came to visit the Saints and unfortunately losing 20-12 on what they considered a 25-yard touchdown catch that was later overturned by official review because the ground forced the ball out of Zach Miller's hands. That player, the tight end, unfortunately bent his left leg in the most unnatural way humanly possible that no person should ever watch. I'm not even kidding you. If you got any kids, if you have anybody at all that you love and care for, do not in any way, shape, or form have them watch that horrific video. It's not good. And unfortunately for him, for Zach Miller, not only did he not have the touchdown rule in his favor, but he had to be immediately carted off the field, had emergency vascular surgery. He's right now recovering in a New Orleans hospital until he is officially let go from the hospital and he can travel. So until that point, he'll be remaining there, recovering. So me personally, at the Blitz Zone, I wish you the speediest recovery, Zach Miller. As for the Chicago Bears, this is yet another litany of injuries that they've had to deal with in the receiving corps. One of the worst teams when it comes to getting a touchdown at all in the tight end and wide receiver positions. Now, not to pile on more ill news towards the Chicago Bears, but another situation just came to pass this week. Jarrell Freeman, the linebacker for the Chicago Bears defense, one of the top 10 in the league, just got handed a second suspension for violating the substance abuse policy in the NFL, which means he will be suspended for 10 games. Next year, he won't be able to play till the beginning of next season. And here's the crazy part. His contract is till 2018, where you're supposed to earn $3.5 million, but there's no guaranteed money. Guaranteed money is even if you get a $50 million contract, NFL teams can only give you a certain amount. So you get a $50 million contract and guaranteed, say, 35. So if that guaranteed money, that protects the team right there in case, God forbid, there's any injuries on that player. They don't have to pay the full contract out. And I think for the player, it kind of keeps them in line, when it comes to certain things that they do on the field, that they shouldn't act a certain way. Don't hurt yourself. Don't do anything unnaturally because it doesn't last. That's what I believe, at least. Well, anyway, for Jarrell Freeman at 31 years of age right now, who knows what the future is going to be for him with the Chicago Bears, but it doesn't look good. As for the Cleveland Browns, as if things are not worse already at 0-8 for them, now a real blast from the past is trying to come back into the receiving corps. Though, honestly, let me tell you this. I don't think it could get any worse. Josh Gordon, this past week, tried before the NFL to be reinstated back to his job at wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. He was given an indefinite ban for violating the league's substance abuse policy. Not only did he violate it once, twice, but 3 times. He hasn't played a regular season game since December 2014. Who knows how NFL ready he will be for them? Remains to be seen. Like any other league, you can trade players, even in the NFL. And this past week, the trade deadline came and passed. And boy, do we have a lot of news to get into that. Starting with the Miami Dolphins, who traded away Jay Ajayi to the Philadelphia Eagles, the team with the best record in the NFL at 7-1, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Dolphins in return received a 2018 4th-round draft pick. There was news, locker room talk about a little rift between Jay Ajayi and the current head coach Adam Gase. In fact, because of their latest beatdown last Thursday in Baltimore, in which they were drudged 40-0, it was painful to watch. I mean, boring beyond belief. Yikes. In which Jay Ajayi only had 21 yards on the first attempt of the game, and yet for the rest of the game, 2 total yards for 13 carries. Not his best performance. This was a guy who last year for the Miami Dolphins had 3 200-yard games, had over 1,200 yards on the ground, and he's had one of the worst seasons imaginable so far. But here's a good relief for Ajayi. He now goes to a team not only with a great record, Yes, an offensive line that's missing Jason Peters, unfortunately, for the rest of the year. But for the most part, still, you got a great and run-by-committee situation. The onus won't be on him. He'll have to work with LeGarrette Blount, Wendell Smallwood. So right there, and Corey Clemens. So things are actually going to be looking out for him. And he has a chance of making the playoffs. So for Ajayi, this couldn't have been a better situation for him. Speaking of another player being traded, Kelvin Benjamin, now the former wide receiver. The last game he played for the Carolina Panthers when they defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 17-13. He got one of the only 2 touchdowns in the game from Cam Newton. Yeah, the only touchdown in the game from Cam Newton in his last hurrah with them. Now he got traded to the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills, in return, gave the Carolina Panthers a 2018 third and 7th round pick. 2 draft picks for a stud receiver. That's pretty good for a day's work for the Buffalo Bills. And that's a pretty good day's work for the Carolina Panthers, and for the Buffalo Bills. They finally get that vertical deep threat receiver that they really missed ever since they let Sammy Watkins go to the LA Rams. So I think it's a win-win on both sides. The New York Jets just got Rashad Robinson, a cornerback, for an undisclosed draft pick. And this really helps the Jets in the cornerback situation where they were having injuries recently with Buster Screen. But Morris Claiborne, thank goodness, was able to be back for last night's 34-21 victory over the Buffalo Bills, which I'll get to in a little bit. But for the Niners, the season is just abysmal 0-8. But here's some relief, 49er fans in the Golden Gate area. They just made the deal of the century. I mean, John Lynch, the new GM, should get a lot of praise for this. They might have just gotten the future quarterback of this franchise. Jimmy Garoppolo, the longtime backup quarterback for the New England Patriots, is now a 49er. And in return, the 49ers gave up a 2018 second-round pick. I'd say the Patriots scored big with that pick, and the 49ers got somebody that could be the future under center. Because as of now, it's C.J. Beathard for the moment, and he's going to have his third start this coming week. But things are just not looking well for him. Got mangled up a few times this past week on the offense from his offensive lineman. So that doesn't help him at all. But yeah, he's going up against a Cardinals team that is really going to give him some troubles. Do not be shocked, folks, if you see Jimmy Garoppolo come in. I remember when he actually came in a game, it was for the Patriots. It was a Monday night game in, I believe it was 2014 against Kansas City. And the Kansas City Chiefs, they won the game 41-14. But when Garoppolo came in, he threw a nice touchdown pass. And he's a good dual-threat quarterback, which you need in this league today. He can run out of the pocket. He can give you good throws. He's got great footwork instincts. And he's got good pocket awareness. Something that I think the other quarterbacks on this 49ers team were lacking, if you ask me. So and after the season's over, because this contract ends this year, I think the 49ers are going to sign him to a long-term deal. So the whole Kyle Shanahan, Kirk Cousins reunion that was going to happen, supposedly, not going to happen, I don't think. And the Seattle Seahawks, speaking of a fellow NFC West team, the Seahawks just acquired Dwayne Brown, the longtime left tackle from the Houston Texans. And in exchange, the Browns got Jeremy Lane, the cornerback, to go in that in the Texans secondary, and a 2018 fifth-round pick and a 2019 second-round pick. So you got 2 draft picks, and cornerback help, and all the Texans had to do was give up their left tackle. Genius move right there again. And after all, Seahawks were having issues at the left tackle position. George Fant, who was supposed to be the starting left tackle during the preseason, unfortunately tore his ACL before the regular season began, and they've been experimenting at that position. The experiment has gone awfully wrong. So Russell Wilson is getting some relief. Not that he needs much because he's still great on his feet, but now this gives him even more time to do more damage. So I really feel bad for the other teams that had to face him. And Dwayne Brown, ironically enough, played his first game in that epic 41-38 loss to his new team. That's right. His first game for the Texans this year was this past week against his new team, the Seahawks, which the Texans lost 41-38 to them. And, it's just ironic when he ended his holdout that second game in this year, he has to go to another team. And the biggest blunder I've ever seen in a trade situation, A.J. McCarron was supposed to be a Cleveland Brown. That's right, the backup quarterback to Andy Dalton on the Cincinnati Bengals was supposed to be going in-state to a fellow AFC North team, and somebody messed up on the paperwork at the deadline that was this past Tuesday on Halloween at 4 o'clock. How does that happen? Honestly, how does that happen? So now A.J. McCarron is stuck as the backup on the Bengals, and the Browns are stuck with Kaiser and the rest of the mess that they have under center. That's all the trade news and everything that took place. And in the playoff, let's get into a little bit of the playoff picture. After 2 months in the regular season, right now in the AFC side, you got the Steelers in the number 1 slot, the Chiefs at the number 2, the Patriots at 3, Texans at 4. The Bills right now, due to that loss, I think still have the number 5 spot for the moment. And the Jaguars are at the 6th spot, with the Dolphins in the hunt at number 7. So it's really crazy, the situation. But the Jets did move up because of that victory to the 9 slot right now, at the moment, after their win last night. The Browns are still going to probably be knocked out at some point. I think the team that really surprises me, and I'm sorry. Yeah, a team that really surprises me the most this year of the top 6 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just a whole new administration that's coming in. Accountability with Tom Coughlin, which has never been seen from this organization. And the defense, leading the league in sacks. The only thing that they still struggle is against the run, but I think they can correct some of those mistakes. The Bills this year under Sean McDermott, with the exception of last night's game, you have to give him a lot of credit for what he's brought to this team. Again, another great opportunistic defense. Some big plays here and there that you get at Tyrod Taylor, except for last night. That offense was just atrocious. And before last night's game, LaShawn McCoy was finally scoring on the ground. Yeah, really, before Thursday night's game, he had 3 touchdowns in his previous 2 games. So that's just exciting right there. And the rest of the league, the AFC with Kansas City and Kareem Hunt, I love this kid. Over 730 yards leading the league. Definitely a Rookie of the Year candidate. And right now, with the unfortunate injury, speaking of which, the Texans right now are going to be dealing with the loss of Deshaun Watson, the rookie quarterback out of Clemson University, had a non-contact injury in practice yesterday, tore his ACL. He is done for the rest of the regular season. It's unfortunate that he had ended the way it did. He was on his way to having some huge rookie numbers on his. He already was having 15 touchdowns at one point in the season. He had 3 games in which he had 3+ touchdowns, which is a first in NFL history. He's great in the pocket. He seldom makes mistakes, except this past weekend, especially at the very end. Well, that, on the other hand, he had no choice in the final interception against Seattle, which is the unfortunate thing that he'll be remembered at the end for his rookie season. But for the most part, I thought he had a hell of a year. Let's see what happens for him and the Texans going forward with Tom Savage. And in the NFC playoff picture, you got the Philadelphia Eagles with the best record in the league at 7-1. The Vikings at 6-2, followed by the Seahawks and the Saints, both at 5-2. The Saints lose their first 2 games and go on a 5-game winning streak because of that whole great dynamic run-pass balance that they have going on offense. And the defense is really emerging with Marshawn Lattimore and Kenny Vaccaro in that secondary. Overall, you just got to like the direction where this team is going. And Drew Brees, a consummate professional. The Rams, just like the Jaguars, teams that were the laughing stocks of the NFL last year are now at the cream of the crop. The Rams score the most points in the league. Jared Goff is having an electric season. He's got 2 new offensive linemen, including Kevin Zeitler, who came Andrew Whitworth, who came from the Cleveland Browns. And Todd Gurley is not only running, but he's able to catch out of the backfield. And Tavon Austin is just masterful in every way that you can put him on the offense. The Panthers right now, it's a roller coaster ride in that 6th slot. Let's go into the news that is week number 8 in the NFL. In jolly old London, England, the Minnesota Vikings were playing the Cleveland Browns at Twickenham Stadium. In the beginning of the game, it was a linebacker of the Browns named by Joe Schubert who got a 37-yard interception to give the Browns the ball back in the beginning of the game. Then Kaiser comes into the pocket, throws an 11-yard pass to David Njoku. Then comes the biggest play of the day, Isaiah Crowell, 26-yard rushing touchdown up the middle, 6-0. Zane Gonzalez, unfortunately, messes up on the extra point. And then after the half was over, the Browns were leading 16-15 at the half. That's crazy to see the Browns leading something because typically, other than the Jets game they had weeks ago, they never lead for the most part. So it was just very surprising to see that. But then, as the Browns do in typical fashion, they blew it, giving up 18 unanswered points, including a 1-yard touchdown run by Jerick McKinnon, a 2-point conversion by McKinnon, the 5-yard touchdown to Kyle Rudolph, the tight end, then the 4th and final field goal by Kai Forbath, and the Browns get obliterated 33-16. Browns are still 0-8. The Vikings are taking advantage of the NFC North now that Aaron Rodgers is done for the year with that collarbone injury and the ineptitude and inconsistencies of the Bears and Lions. So the NFC North is ripe for the taking for the Vikings. Now, the 49ers, talk about another winless squad right here, went to the city of brotherly love and got no love whatsoever in the form of a 33-10 thrashing. Carson Wentz adding to his leading touchdown stats, 2 in this game, making it 19 on the season. Jalen Mills out of LSU gets a pick 6, and the Eagles are just up, have their 6th straight victory, while the 49ers, for the first time in the history, I mean, going all the way back to the Montana and Jerry Rice days, first time ever, the 49ers have an 0-8 start. And the sad part about for C.J. Beathard in a second consecutive start, he gets sacked 4 times. That's 9 times in 2 games he gets sacked. He gets hit 12 times in this performance. The only touchdown he had was basically in garbage time. And while Carson Wentz threw a huge pass to Zach Ertz, who I think is one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. Great performance by the Eagles. Great season they're having for the 49ers. Just more of the same. Ugh. Just disgusting. Oh, speaking of a game that really I think Colts fans want to forget, let me ask you, Colt fans, what would you rather forget? The 27-0 thrashing by the Jaguars in Week 7, or this past week in which you had a 23-17 lead, but your quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, gets a pass batted down by the linebacker, Carlos Dunlap, then recovers said batted pass and goes 16 yards for the game-winning touchdown. And your Colts lose 24-23. What's worse? And I don't mean to be glee about that, because this is unfortunate for a Colts team that is without Andrew Luck for the rest of the year, and now another loss on the season. Things are really going to be bad for Chuck Pagano if they don't pick up for the rest of this year. Honestly, I would not be shocked to see Pagano handed a pink slip either this week or sometime later before the season is out. And it's not just him. It's an indictment on the offensive line that can't protect him. The running game is another indictment on the offensive line because they can't get many rushing yards. Frank Gore can do only so much, as well as Jacoby Brissett. And you have to give Brissett a lot of credit for coming into a really difficult situation. And the sad part is they had more total yards than the Cincinnati Bengals. And they held Cincinnati to 4 of 11 on 3rd down. So good defensive game planning for the Colts, but the offense blew it yet again. The Carolina Panthers go into Tampa Bay, beat them 17-3, including a 17-play, 82-yard drive that Cam Newton engineered, taking off 8 minutes off the clock, 5 third downs, leading to a 1-yard rushing touchdown by Jonathan Stewart. The Panthers beat the Buccaneers 17-3. The AC joint injury that Jameis Winston had as quarterback for the Buccaneers 2 weeks ago in Arizona is really affecting him. The Raiders, coming off a huge Thursday night win over the Chiefs 31-30 in dramatic fashion, get dramatically beaten 34-14 in Buffalo. Matt Milano, the rookie linebacker for the Bills, gets a 4-yard fumble return touchdown. Tyrod Taylor, over 100 in passer rating, and LaShawn McCoy, 151 yards on the ground, including a 48 rushing touchdown. The Bills with Sean McDermott are getting slightly better, while the Raiders right now losing 5 out of their last 6. A lot of expectations for the Raiders and nothing being lived up. Now, the Falcons go into New York trying to end a 3-game losing streak. And here's the crazy part. The Falcons lost 3 consecutive games against one division. The division the Jets are in, the AFC East. So, what's the common cure for losing the 3 consecutive AFC East teams? Beat an AFC East team, in which the Falcons did. And here's the sad part for the Jets. 3rd consecutive week, they had a lead going to the 4th quarter, and they just find a way to blow it somehow. They're up 17-16. They're trying to add to that lead by a Catanzaro field goal for 48 yards. Goes wide right. Gives the Falcons great field position at their own 38. Tevin Coleman busts out for a 52-yard run. Then another 5-yard run. Matt Ryan fumbles the ball, recovers it. Then on the next play, Matt Ryan throws an 8-yard touchdown pass to Mohamed Sanu, the receiver from Rutgers. That's right. The local kid got one on his state's team, professional team, that is. And the Falcons are up 22-17. Ryan fumbles for the 4th and final time on the botched 2-point conversion attempt. The Jets are able to make it a 2-point game with a 46-yard field goal by Catanzaro with 8:42 remaining. Eventually, the Jets get the ball back, are able to get the ball back, and Jeremy Curley, the biggest blunder of the day, muffs the punt that was given to him by Matt Bosher. Kamal Ishmael recovers it for the Falcons special teams. And at the Jets 13, and the Falcons are able to extend the lead with a field goal for 29 yards. The Falcons are up 25-20 with about 5:19 left, and that pretty much is the score. Now, the Chicago Bears go into New Orleans to play the Saints, and they lose 2012. You got to give up to the Saints and the way they're playing things now. Again, they lost their first 2 games and have now won 5 consecutive games to be above 500 for the first time since 2013. And what is the reason for this surge that they're having? Well, 2 things. One, they have a great balance on their offense in terms of the run and the pass. So Drew Brees doesn't have to throw the ball 40-plus times each game. He can rely on his arm 20, 30 times, and you got the running combination of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Despite Mark Ingram had 2 fumbles in the last 5 minutes of the 4th quarter, which nearly put the Bears back in the game, including a touchdown that the Bears were able to get on one of those fumbles. But still, the Saints were able to hold off the Bears and win 2012. And I mentioned earlier, Zach Miller, unfortunately, has a leg injury that does him in for the season. Now, the LA Chargers go into New England, and you would think that they would be they have a chance to win this game in sloppy rain. They lose 21-13 despite Melvin Gordon and one of the best plays of the week. He gets the ball up the right seam and goes on an 87-yard touchdown run. But despite that, and despite only holding Tom Brady to 1 touchdown, the Patriots, as usual, are able to find victories, and they did in this one, 21-13 over the Chargers. Chargers made several mistakes. The muff punt and the muff punt by Travis Benjamin, and trying to reverse field in which he gets knocked in the end zone for a Patriots safety, and the fact that Phillip Rivers fumbles the ball and gets a loss of 20 yards for the Chargers. The Cowboys go into Washington. They're down 13-7 to the Redskins. The Redskins have a chance for a field goal that makes it a 16-7 game. Instead, Tyrone Crawford blocks Nick Rose, the place kicker for the Redskins' attempt at a field goal. Orlando Scandrick picks up the ball, goes 82 yards. And then 2 plays later for the Cowboys offense, Ezekiel Elliott gets a 1-yard rushing touchdown. The Cowboys beat the Redskins 33-19. Monday Night Football, the Broncos in need of a victory in the worst way against their AFC West rivals, the Kansas City Chiefs, in Kansas City, and the return of Jamal Charles, the longtime stalwart on offense for the Chiefs, now playing as a Bronco. That didn't even mean anything because Harrison Butker, the play